I'm here with my Viral Wisdom weekly course for the time being. Don't know how long it'll last. This is lesson or session number 54. So welcome in. Tell me how you are, how you're doing. Have things opened up where you are? Are you back to trying a normalcy that is still experimental? How is it for where you are? Tell me where you're signing in from. I'm really happy to be here. I see you. Nash from the Maldives, Kira from Dubai, Veronique from Connecticut, Adeline, Kristina Shafak. Hi guys, from South Africa, San Diego, Mexico. This is one of the redeeming features of social media. We get to connect to people from all over the world in this community, and I love that. I honor it. I cherish it. I see you, Paula from Brazil, Andrea from Italy, Portugal. Kreshma is on lockdown level 3 in South Africa. Sydney, India. Hello, everyone. Hi, Erica, Agnieszka. Okay, so what I want to talk about today is a smorgasbord of things that may seem disconnected at first, but they will connect and make sense, I hope, toward the end. There is a definite palpable sense, at least here in the US, of a fatigue. I don't know whether the rest of you are feeling this in your own life, but definitely an exhaustion, right? And a sense of when will this be over? When will this be over? And the corona has now been sidelined a little bit in America with racism, with the deplorable state of racism here in this country and then globally. It's a global phenomenon. So we've had two global phenomenons hit us back to back. We've had the coronavirus and then the virus, the psychological virus of racism. Two viruses, a biological one and a psychological one. And when we have these intersecting traumas that bombard the psyche, it can be debilitating, right? Because then there's an economic fallout, there's a social fallout, there is more mental fallout, and all of these interweave to create a colossal post-traumatic or traumatic stress disorder. Right now, we're still in the trauma of it. This is huge. It's unprecedented. And I sense from the people I speak to that there is a deep fatigue and exhaustion, a wanting to shut down, to let go. So let's talk a little bit about our coping mechanisms in trauma. One of the most common coping mechanisms in trauma is denial, is avoidance, is withdrawal, is shutting down, deflecting. They're all part of one, part of denial. Withdrawal, shutting down, deflecting, denying, withdrawing, distracting, right? You distract, and you distract in many ways. You drink too much, you eat too much, you watch too much TV, because the present moment is too painful. Another very common, more sophisticated coping strategy is to spiritually bypass. You may have heard of this term. It's very common, especially in people who like to think they're spiritual. What is spiritual bypass? It means you bypass the tumult and the chaos and the pain and the destruction of the present moment because it's so intolerable. It's so chaotic making that you bypass it for a higher seeming sounding goal of spirituality. So no one can fault you because you're talking love, you're speaking love, you're talking about the highest ideals of spirituality such as kumbaya, unity consciousness, we're all brothers and sisters. It's all beautiful, beautiful, and we need to, and it's true. Nothing is untrue. But why is it a bypass? Because in order to get there, you first have to heal the wound. It's like the surgeon coming into your operating room. You are right there, opened up, ready to be fixed, and the surgeon goes, Kumbaya, let's just pray to the red-chested robins and hear the birds chirping, and let's just wish this broken bone into healing. You'll be like, are you smoking something? My bone is broken. Can you fix my bone? And the surgeon is like, no, but we just have to trust, and we just have to surrender and not see anything broken, see everything whole. You see? Now I talk like that too, but I don't bypass to talk like that, right? There is a place for that, but not when the wound is wounding and the blood is bleeding. Do you understand? So that's another coping mechanism. I see it rampantly right now in the conversation, which is so uncomfortable, around race. I see it so rampantly. So another coping mechanism is outright blame. Complete deflection. Not deflection of just the problem, but deflecting the responsibility onto someone else. It's not my fault. I didn't do anything. It's your fault, your fault, your fault, your fault. So blame, 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 which equals more abuse, more violence, more anger. Yes, you're seeing that too. So these are standard psychological coping mechanisms of the very primitive kind, of the elementary school garden variety. I do them, you do them. Let's not act like we don't do them. But the trick here is not to do it because you're going to do it, because you're in trauma. The trick is to be aware that you're doing it. And then if someone calls you out on it and says, hey, I think you're drinking too much, or I think you're blaming the world too much, or you've entered victimhood, you're feeling like you're a victim. You're not the victim. Maybe you're the perpetrator, but you're entering this victimhood. When somebody calls you out on it, you have to be brave, right? But here's the thing. Our tendency is to avoid pain, period. Our tendency, though, is not to stop causing pain. And here is why humanity looks the way it does. If we had a mentality to avoid causing pain, now we're talking about oneness consciousness, unity consciousness. But that's not where our energy is. Our energy is more in avoiding pain. If we focused our life more on how am I causing pain? How is my ego causing pain? How am I part of a system of injustice? How am I part of a system of racial inequality? How am I causing my child to be in pain? How am I causing my neighbors to hurt? How am I participating in a system of systemic hierarchical oppression? How am I? Right? If we ask that pivotal question of turning the mirror inward would entirely change the globe. We would move from a dehumanizing society to a humanizing society. You see, at the core of it all is dehumanization, deflection, detraction, denial, avoidance, spiritual bypass, blame, othering. These are all tactics because we live in a dehumanized way. We're not human to human. Our capacity to understand another person's pain is so limited. Why? Because as children, we were not understood for our pain. And our parents told us to eat it, stuff it, drink it, run away from it. Our parents made us feel so ashamed to be in pain that we learned to cover up our pain through ego defense mechanisms, such as the ones I've talked about. We try to be ultra competent, it's not bothering me, I'm fine. Right? That's a defense mechanism. The defense mechanism of even being the comedian or being the pastor or being the uplifter, right? These can all be defense mechanisms because they're taking us away from the humanity of the present moment. So right now in the coronavirus, for example, if we have encountered groups of people who tell us that we're crazy to think that the virus is serious, or we have people who deny the existence of the virus, and there's no knock on people being skeptics. We should all be healthy skeptics, not cynical, but skeptic. I'm talking about people who deny that it exists. What that does is it obliterates the humanity of the experiences that have experienced it. And the person is like, but, what if I have? And the person is going, well, I don't think you have. So to deny it, the Jews have felt this way because in many, many, many times in history, the Holocaust has been denied. And you know how that feels when your entire history has been denied. But forget even groups of people. Let's talk about just you and me. When your and my experience is denied, where you're saying, this happened to me. How many children have gone to their parents saying, I've been sexually abused, and the parents going, nah, you're just making it up. Right? Can you imagine? Can you imagine what that feels like? What's happening in that moment is that the parent is so threatened by the possibility that their child is in pain, that their parent cannot tolerate and hold space for the groundlessness that brings up in the parent. So in order to tolerate the pain that the parent experiences, the parent shuts the child up. Similarly, in the coronavirus, many people have been shut up. But in the dialogue on racism, now here is where you see the most voices being shut up, right? The most voices being shut up. Why? Because of what I talked about. It is too traumatic to imagine that this has occurred to our brothers and sisters. It's so unfathomable to us that they have endured hundreds of years, that the pain of that feels so intolerable that instead of empathizing with it, we do spiritual bypass, or we do deflection, or we do blame, or we do some spiritual woo-woo nonsense because we cannot acknowledge the pain. Because to acknowledge the pain somewhere for us feels to admit that we have failed. And because our egos are so fragile, we can't admit that we have been part of the wrong. But it's only when we admit that we have been part of the wrong. We're not taking the whole responsibility, but can we at least say we're part of the wrong? Part of the privilege that have experienced benefit? Can we say something to acknowledge the pain? It is only then that we can do the work. And until we do the work, and this is on all sides, we will not change and turn a corner. Now, I've been going pretty hard on my social media. It seems like I'm racist, right? I've been accused of being racist because I've been going after white supremacy. And people don't read everything I write because they're quick to other, quick to blame, quick to judge. So because they're in judgment, they think I'm in judgment. So when I write white supremacy, they think I'm talking about white people. And they shut down, and then they deflect, and then they yell, and then they finger point, and they miss the point. I am never against a white person here or a white person there. Who cares about the white person here or white person there, but that's not the point. The point isn't one person or the other person. It's white supremacy, which is a systematized, institutionalized, hierarchical state of continued oppression of a certain group of people, no matter the time in history. And every one of us is part of white supremacy, including black people. Woe to them. And they hate it, I'm sure, but you have to become part of it. Right? Each time we straighten our hair, each time we wear contact lenses, each time we whiten and fairify, right? The word fair, which really is associated with equity, is associated with white skin. Every time we participate, we are part of this ideology of white supremacy. And until we fight the ideology and understand how the ideology is dehumanizing and stop taking things personally, we will not topple the system. In conscious parenting, when I used to say that every single parent is unconscious, oh my goodness, it's like I had ignited Armageddon. Because the first reaction people had is, oh, I'm not unconscious. I'm not unconscious. Yesterday I was so conscious. And they missed the point, right? It doesn't matter if on Tuesday night between 7 and 9:20 you happen to be conscious because you actually didn't see your kids for 2 hours and 20 minutes. It doesn't matter. It's about a system of parental oppression. It's about a system of parental unconsciousness. And unless we can go to that level and understand that because it's a system, we are all part of it. And at best, right, we can call it a system of universal dehumanization, right? Because that's really what it is. But it has another name. And you may not like the name, but it's a name. And you don't have to attach to the name. It's just for colloquial communication. It's called racism. It's called white supremacy. It doesn't matter, though, what the name is. It's about the fact that it exists. And only when we are willing to step out of our comfort zone, of our comfortable egos, which long for perfection, which long for infallibility, which long for the delusion of grandeur. You see, our egos want to be intact. Until we're willing to step out and call our ego, we will keep thinking it is not our problem. How is it my problem, you're going to say, that my white ancestors did something on some slave ship? How is it my problem, you may say? Or the brown person in Iowa right now may say, how is it my problem that there's race issues going on in Atlanta, Georgia? And the person in Georgia will say, how is it my problem that Muslims are being persecuted in India right now? And the Muslim in India will say, how is it my problem if the Jews are being killed in Palestine, in Gaza or wherever, right? And everyone will keep ping-ponging the issue and nothing will get resolved because in our fundamental individual mentality, we truly don't believe it's our problem. And so we think it's personal. We don't think it's our problem because we think it's personal. You see, because I'm such a good person. It's not about the I right now. It's about the I being part of a collective. And unless we understand that we're all feeding a collective unconscious and doing our part through complicit denial or implicit denial, through speaking up or shutting up, we're all participating, nothing will change. So it is a unique time in history with the corona completely bringing us to our knees in a way that we never thought would happen in this century. America especially, right? New York especially, but the whole world being brought to its knees. Already right there was a dismantling of the ego, of structures of comfort and predictability, the delusions of grandeur and security. We realize from the corona that there is no permanence in life. There is no predictability. There's no security. There is no future. We are living moment by moment. And now, just on the heels of that, no coincidence, we are now confronting the real virus which is beneath us. And that is the virus of subjugation of others, the injustice toward others. And right now, it's focused on Black Lives Matter. But don't worry, other people will get their time. It is really the ignition of all our awareness around all subjugation. But right now we're focusing on Black Lives Matter and using that as the symbol of all inequities. But we must first acknowledge the big one, right? And until we're willing to look in the mirror and see how we have vilified the black man, right? More than even other groups. And I don't want to have a pitting war. But you know, if your daughter came home with an Indian man, if your daughter came home with a Muslim man, if your daughter came home with a Hindu man, your daughter came home with a Bangladeshi, your daughter came home with a black man, your daughter came home with a white man, your daughter came home with an Asian man, where would you be the most poked? Yes? As a system. And until we are honest about it, we will not change the racism that exists in our country and the globe. Until we say that each one of us says, I've been part of this oppression toward you, my black brother. We will be faking it, we will be pretending, we will be missing the point, and racism as it has will continue for another 400 years because we all are pretending. that we're not racist. You know, it's tough. It's tough. It's a tough conversation to have. But just like in parenting, until we can look in the mirror and say, you know what? I'm a bloody tyrant in my house. I like power. I like my children to be obedient little puppets. Until we're willing to do that as parents, we will not shift the parenting paradigm. And if parents can do it, and I have helped one parent after the other break down their ego, if they can do it, we can all do it, right? Because no one apparently loves the other than the parent, right? No one loves their children more than the parent. So if I can help parents see their own inherent stereotypes, their own inherent bigotry, so to speak, against their children, surely we can get the whole globe to wake up. And yes, white people need to wake up too. And that's okay. Just because it's called white supremacy doesn't mean white people are all bad. It just means they're part of a system called white supremacy, but they are part of it. And so are brown people. We're all part of it. But right now, Black Lives Matter. You see? And we cannot lose focus of where the pain is the deepest. Where does the cut go the furthest? Who is bleeding the most? That's where you start. And until we start there, we can't continue on. But this doesn't mean we're excluding anyone. You know, a lot of people have come to see that the phrase Black Lives Matter, if it had only said Black Lives Matter too, we would have solved the whole problem. Why didn't we just say Black Lives Matter too? Then all these people who talk about all lives matter could have just been quiet. And my answer is, I'm so glad we didn't say two. Because the two was implicit. The two was understood. But the fact that people took to arms because it didn't say two, it reveals an underlying racism. We like it or not, it reveals an underlying problem. So I'm so happy. Get it or you don't get it. And this is one of those pivotal times, and so it is with the coronavirus. You know, both the coronavirus and the racial divide right now are pivotal points because it's a either or situation. Either or doesn't mean duality, because in the big mind of our wise selves, we know there is no duality. It's all one race. It's all the human race. We know that. But in the moment, in order to get to the bigger ideal, we need to start cleaning up all the wounds and fixing all the broken bones and stitching up all the fragmented skin. We need to start with where the blood is bleeding. And then we work our way up and we reach the utopia. But by denying, by ignoring, by pretending, by not fully sitting with the pain, we will miss the point. Sitting with the pain is not easy. None of us want to be in pain. Our instinct is to stay away from pain. Yet pain chases us as if we were the flame and it was the moth, right? It just chases us. Why? Because pain is part of life. And what's happening right now with the coronavirus and with the racial divide, we're seeing pain. All of us are in pain. And wherever we fall on these issues, we are in pain. And until we stop in 2020 and we say, you know what? This is the year of clear vision. It is. We're getting to see the pain. We're getting to see what's underneath. We're getting to see how resilient we are, how together we are or not, how unified we are or not, how our voice matters. Right? Are we using our platform to talk about the pain? Or are we pretending like the pain doesn't exist? How are we using our voices? And no judgment on people who don't want to use their voices. However, one has to question, how are we evading the most predominant lessons of this moment? The coronavirus and the racial divide have posed to humanity our biggest issues. It is now our choice to see it in clear 2020 or not, right? It's like 2020 is looking back in hindsight. Can we see how we got here? We didn't just get here. We got here through a myriad of centuries, of eons of causes and effects. and causes and effects. And unless we now make a change, call your school district, change the curriculum, have more black voices, have more diversity, hire more black people on your staff. You have to have black screenwriters. You have to have black movie directors. We have to, because we need the other perspective, and other people of color, and indigenous people, and transgender, and LGBTQ, of course. Right? When I say black, I'm not excluding. But we are now realizing that without these other voices in our mind, many white people are talking about how can they educate themselves, right? And I know the cynical person of color goes, really? Now you're educating yourself? But that's okay. Better now than never. So they're trying to educate. Wonderful. Now we start educating. But to educate means everyone needs to speak up. How do we educate if we all don't speak up? So I began by saying it's a time of fatigue and it's a time of exhaustion. But I'm going to end by saying this is not the time to be exhausted. Yes, it is a time of exhaustion and it is a time of fatigue, but we can't give up. We cannot give up right now because this is the moment of 2020. This is the moment of rising from all that we're seeing. You see, seeing too much in awareness hurts. Ignorance is bliss. Awareness is tough. Awareness is not easy. Awareness is a pain in the ass. But now we're seeing, and it's exhausting. We want to run away. We want to employ one of our primitive coping mechanisms. Paint it, change it. Let's shift the focus. Let's go have a summer. Can we just go back to how we all were before in our little bubbles? We can't though, because the veils have been lifted. And now we're getting tired. We want to run away. But I'm here to say we can't. Of course we can. You can do whatever you want. But as a collective, we can't. We cannot get tired now. We need to understand where our fatigue is coming from. Our fatigue is coming from finally seeing things as they are. You're getting tired of seeing Black Lives Matter too much? People are telling me, enough, Dr. Shefali. Can you just stick to your lane, Dr. Shefali? What lane? What lane? Systemic injustice is everybody's lane. Racial injustice is everybody's lane. Your child could come home with a person of color and marry them, and your grandchildren could be children of color. It's everybody's game, everybody's lane, everybody's problem, right? People are telling me, that they're tired. Now enough. Like, enough now. You did it one time, you did it 2 times, but you're pounding your social media too much because people don't want to hear too much. It's painful to keep the shining spotlight on you. But this time, we cannot run away. We have to keep the finger there, right? When the wound is bleeding, we keep it there, right? Till it stops bleeding. Same here. We're going to keep the pressure till things change, right? It's not easy. It's difficult. It takes courage, right? I'm nervous to talk about this because I'm getting so much flack back. But I'm like, I don't care. But we have to wake up and go, okay, is the problem finished? If the problem isn't finished, how can the warriors of change get tired and go to sleep? We can't. This is the year of 2020, meaning we have to see things clearly, but we can't run away. We can't regress. We can't avoid. We have to move forward to a new tomorrow. So 20 years from now, our children look back and go, remember? Remember when police used to brutalize Black people? Remember? We need this to truly be in hindsight, in retrospect. But it's not in retrospect. It is right here, right now. And as long as it is here right now, we have to stand up. We have to rise up. We have to keep it on everybody's radar, right? People are going to tell you we're tired. Enough now. Talk about sunflowers and butterflies and barbecues and beaches, please. Right? What a downer you are, Dr. Shefali, all the time. Again, you're talking about racism? You're again talking about it? Right? Well, let me tell you. Just like the coronavirus isn't going to go till it goes. And just like in the coronavirus, we had to presume that everyone had it. We have to do the same here. Racism is alive and kicking, as much if not more than before. Just now we are more dignified, sophisticated, more covered, more covert about it. But it's still here. You can see it. It's everywhere. And until it dissipates, until we have educated our children and their parents enough, and their grandparents enough, and then more, and then some more. Nothing will change, right? When I wrote a book on parenting, I couldn't stop at one book. I had to go write book 2. I couldn't stop at book 2. I had to write book 3. Why? Because things don't change just through a few memes and a few uprisings and a few months of protesting. This is 2 months, not even 2 months. 1 month of Black Lives Matter, and people are already complaining that people are tired. Imagine living like this for centuries, for eons, for generations. Black people don't have a choice to say we're tired, so we can't be tired now. So this is the sign of the times. This is the moment. It's showing up. We have to be here. We have to respond. And we have to respond appropriately. Not by deflection, not by denial, not by running away, not by withdrawal, not by becoming more alcoholic. By responding to the pain. By educating ourselves to ask, how have I contributed to the pain? And by making the changes every single day till the system changes. Act as if it happened to your father. Act as if it happened to your son. Act as if it's going to happen to your daughter. That's it. Act as if. You know, people talk about the secret and how to manifest change. You act as if. Okay, now it's time to do this for our Black brothers and sisters and our people of color and indigenous and LGBTQ. Act as if it's your family. Act as if it's your sister. Act as if it's you. And those of us in the privileged group, whatever that is, the heterosexual, cisgender, white group, whatever the group is that enjoys privilege, needs to get off the high horse and join the others. No more dividing. The only way to stop this divide is we need more on one side. And it's not one side against the other. It is simply the side of right, of justice, of equity, of compassion, of love, right? And those who come to this side, we need to greet them with open arms, not go, oh, it took you so long. Oh, really? Where have you been for so long? Now you're coming here? No, we need to open arms and go, come, come, come. We need to educate with love, with compassion. Trust me, I'm not good at this. I have so much judgment. I have so much resentment, so much anger. I'm working on that every day. And I'm becoming better because I realize if I'm judgmental and filled with vitriolic anger, I'm the same. My consciousness is the same as the consciousness I wish to change. So I have to shift my consciousness, right? Like Michelle Obama says, when they go low, we go high. And we educate and talk and talk and talk. And we make our lives purposeful. We create a life of activism. Simple activism. It doesn't have to be you have to go and, on a crusade. But there are many ways to be active. And social media is the way. Use your social media platform. Don't let it go. Do it with love. Do it with compassion. But don't be silenced. Speak up for what's right. We have to. Because it is our children. Act as if it's your father, brother, son, and your daughter's husband. That's how we act. Because that's how it is. And when we get to that place of unification in our consciousness, where we no longer dehumanize, only then will the system change. So while we are exhausted, we cannot stop. While we are fatigued, we have to remember those who've been fighting this battle for years more than us. This is the time to keep going. 2020 is taking us down. We can't allow it to take us down without learning anything, right? Without changing anything. We're down and out already. So let's use this pain to elevate, to evolve. We're suffering. All of us are suffering, but let's make something of this suffering. Let's not give up. Let's not become cozy. Let's not become complacent. Let our children see us, the parents, rising up. Okay, guys, thank you. If you want to meditate with me, I am teaching meditation for free. I'm going to go there in 20 minutes to teach meditation. Come to this page. It's a Facebook page. It's facebook.com/groups/get super powered /. Come meditate with me. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I want to see some of you there. Thank you for joining me. I should be back here next week with another Viral Wisdom on Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Bye, everyone.